Have you ever woken up on your birthday and hoped no one would notice? Not because you dislike celebration, but because the idea of being seen, centered, or made special on that day feels uncomfortable? Maybe even unbearable? You scroll past well wishes without replying. You tell coworkers, "Oh, it's just another day." You might even avoid social media altogether, just to dodge the spotlight. And later alone you feel a quiet ache. Not because you weren't celebrated, but because part of you wanted to be and yet couldn't let yourself receive it. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken, you're not ungrateful, and you're certainly not alone. What you're experiencing has a name and a history. Psychologists might call it emotional invisibility, or link it to early attachment wounds. Some researchers tie it to what's known as inhibited celebration, a pattern where joy is unconsciously suppressed because at some point in your life, being seen brought more risk than reward. This isn't about disliking birthdays, it's about a deeper, quieter story, one where your nervous system learned that attention, even loving attention, could be dangerous or undeserved. If you've ever felt this way, this space is for you. Consider subscribing. This channel is a safe place for those learning to heal, not perform. You deserve to exist without apology on your birthday and every other day. Let's gently explore why that can feel so hard. Imagine a child, maybe 5 or 6, sitting at the edge of a classroom party. It's their birthday. There are cupcakes, a slightly lopsided card signed by classmates, maybe a small wrapped gift from their teacher. But at home, silence. No balloons, no happy birthday sung with warmth. Maybe a distracted, "Oh right, it's your birthday," from a parent rushing out the door. Or worse, a sigh. A comment like, "We can't afford anything fancy." Or "Don't make a big deal, it's not that important." That child learns something profound in that moment. Not through lectures, but through absence. They learn that their joy is a burden, that their specialness is inconvenient, that wanting to be celebrated is selfish. And so, they tuck that desire away. They stop mentioning their birthday. They smile politely when others celebrate, but never expect it for themselves. This wasn't weakness, this was survival. Psychologically, this pattern often roots in what attachment theory calls emotional neglect. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, consistent kind. The kind where your inner world, your hopes, your excitement, your need to be cherished, wasn't mirrored back to you. According to Dr. John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, children need more than food and shelter. They need attunement, the sense that their emotional presence matters to someone. When that's missing, the nervous system adapts. It learns to downshift joy, to mute anticipation, to treat your own milestones like ordinary days. Because ordinary is safe. Ordinary doesn't risk disappointment. Ordinary doesn't ask for love that might not come. Sometimes this pattern also forms in families where one parent was emotionally overwhelmed, depressed, addicted, or chronically stressed. In those homes, children often become invisible caregivers, learning early that their role is to soothe, not to shine. Celebrating themselves would feel like adding weight to an already heavy load. Or perhaps in your home, birthdays were celebrated, but only as performances. You had to smile on cue, hug relatives you didn't know, perform gratitude for gifts you didn't like. Over time, celebration became synonymous with obligation, not joy. So you stopped expecting anything at all. And that quiet resignation, it followed you into adulthood, not as a choice, but as a protective shell. You didn't forget your birthday. You just learned it wasn't safe to care. But the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget. Now, as an adult, your birthday arrives, and you treat it like any other Tuesday. You go to work. You answer emails. You make dinner. You might even feel a flicker of relief when no one remembers. But beneath that calm surface, something stirs. Maybe it's a heaviness in your chest when a friend posts a joyful birthday reel online. Maybe it's the way you deflect compliments with a joke. "Ugh, don't remind me I'm older." Or perhaps you plan a small gathering, but cancel last minute, saying you're too busy, when really you're overwhelmed by the idea of being the center of attention. In relationships, this pattern shows up in subtle ways. You might avoid telling new partners your birthday or downplay it when they ask. You accept half-hearted gestures without protest, not because you don't care, but because asking for more feels like asking to be loved. And that's terrifying. At work, you never mention your birthday in the office chat. You cringe when HR sends a generic happy birthday email to the whole team. You'd rather be invisible than risk a moment where people look at you and you don't know how to receive their warmth. Even your self-talk reflects this. It's just a day. Other people have real problems. I shouldn't need this. But here's what's rarely said aloud. This isn't humility. It's unprocessed grief. The hidden cost? Chronic emotional invisibility. You become so skilled at minimizing your own needs that you start to disappear. Even to yourself. You feel numb on days that should carry meaning. You resent others for celebrating freely, not out of jealousy, but because their ease highlights your own disconnection from joy. And the cruelest irony, to the outside world you look low maintenance, chill, even strong, but inside, you're carrying the weight of a lifetime of uncelebrated existence. It looks like strength, but it's unprocessed pain, wearing a quiet disguise. You weren't born believing you didn't deserve celebration. You learned it through silence, through absence, through love that came with conditions. And now your adult self keeps protecting that wounded child by refusing to hope. Our culture doesn't make this any easier. In fact, it often twists the knife. On one hand, we're bombarded with images of perfect birthdays, curated Instagram stories, surprise parties, luxury gifts, tearful toasts. Social media turns celebration into performance. Something you're supposed to document, optimize, and share for validation. If your birthday doesn't look like that, it can feel like failure. But on the other hand, there's a quiet cultural script that says, don't make a fuss, be humble, birthdays are for kids, especially if you're a woman, a caregiver, or someone raised to prioritize others. You've likely absorbed the message that wanting to be celebrated is indulgent, even narcissistic. We live in a world that confuses authentic joy with attention-seeking, that equates self-worth with productivity, not presence. So when your birthday comes, you're caught in a double bind. If you celebrate, you feel guilty. If you don't, you feel empty. And let's be honest, many of us have internalized the idea that love must be earned, that you have to do something special to deserve a special day. But birthdays aren't rewards. They're acknowledgments of your simple, unearned right to exist. The truth is, authentic celebration isn't about grand gestures. It's about allowing yourself to be witnessed, exactly as you are. But when your nervous system associates being seen with danger or disappointment, even a simple happy birthday can feel like standing on a stage without a script. Modern life amplifies this. We're expected to be on all the time, posting, performing, producing. Yet when it comes to receiving genuine care on a day that's just about you, many of us freeze. Because real celebration requires vulnerability. It asks you to say, I matter, just because I'm here. And that's a radical statement in a world that tells you your value depends on what you give, not who you are. So when you treat your birthday like a normal day, it's not that you don't care. It's that the culture never taught you how to receive love without earning it first. Healing this pattern doesn't mean throwing a party or forcing yourself to post a birthday selfie. It starts much more quietly with permission. Permission to notice what you feel on your birthday without judgment. Maybe it's sadness, maybe it's numbness, maybe it's a flicker of longing you've buried for years. Just let it be there. You don't have to fix it. You just have to witness it. One gentle step is to practice what therapists call reparenting. Imagine that younger version of you, the child who waited for someone to notice, who learned to shrink their joy to keep the peace. What would they have needed to hear on their birthday? Maybe you matter just because you exist. Your joy is welcome here. I see you. Say those words to yourself now, out loud if you can. Write them in a note you read every year. This isn't childish, it's corrective. You're offering your nervous system a new experience that being seen can be safe. Another invitation: protect your private joy. You don't have to announce your birthday to the world, but maybe this year you do one small thing, just for you. Light a candle, buy your favorite pastry, sit in the sun for 10 minutes and say, "Today I honor the fact that I'm still here." And if someone does reach out to celebrate you, try pausing before you deflect. Instead of, "Oh, it's no big deal," try, "Thank you, that means a lot." You don't have to perform gratitude, you just have to let the kindness land. Most importantly, release the idea that healing means becoming someone who loves birthdays. It doesn't. Healing means becoming someone who no longer punishes yourself for existing, who allows space for your truth, whether that's quiet solitude or joyful connection. This isn't about self-improvement, it's about self-witnessing, about returning to the part of you that once believed, without question, that your presence was a gift. You don't need to earn your birthday. You already did by surviving, by showing up, by carrying your heart through all these years. So let's return to that quiet question we began with. Have you ever woken up on your birthday and hoped no one would notice? Now you know why. It wasn't because you don't deserve celebration, it was because somewhere along the way, love felt conditional and joy felt risky. You learned to protect yourself by pretending the day didn't matter. But here's what matters now. You're here, reading this, listening, still tending to your heart, even when it's hard. And that alone is worth honoring. Your worth was never tied to how you celebrate or whether you celebrate at all. It lives in your quiet resilience, in your capacity to keep going, even when no one's watching, in the way you show up for others, even when you haven't fully learned to show up for yourself. But you're learning, and that's enough. You don't need to be seen by everyone to matter. You don't need a party to prove you belong. Your existence is not a performance. It's a quiet miracle, especially if you've had to fight to keep it alive. So however you choose to move through your next birthday, whether in silence, in solitude, or in soft celebration, may you do it with kindness toward yourself. May you remember that you were born worthy of joy, not because of what you've done, but simply because you are. If this resonated, you belong here. Hit subscribe and remember, your quiet existence matters, even when no one's watching. You've always been enough, even on the days you forgot to believe it.